Hey there everyone, it's Austin Bach and we're back on Magic Online trying another Rivals of Ixalan draft. So I know in my last draft video I was pretty clear on how much I kind of dislike the format, but I did want to give it a second shot. I don't plan on just taking a complete break off of draft until the next set releases. I'm gonna, try to use some of the new knowledge I have with the format. I've drafted it a few more times and gotten a better grasp of the format since then, so I'm gonna give it another good shot and see if I can come to appreciate this format for what it is. So Secrets of the Golden City stands out, as well as Moment of Craving. I think I prefer to take the Moment of Craving first. It's a much safer pick, it's just always going to be good. Secrets I think is a little more important for like the slower, control-y, I hesitate to call it an Ascend deck, but decks that tend to want to go long and get Ascend really want cards like Secrets of the Golden City to pull ahead, but Moment of Craving is also fine. Ooh, this is a pretty good pack. I see a Direfleet Neckbreaker, which is the best card you can have probably for the Black-Red Pirates deck, but obviously you have to be in the Pirates deck in order to make use of it. There's a Bombard, which is also very good. I wouldn't be unhappy to have it in a black-red deck. But if I was going to be black-red, I would obviously much rather have the Neckbreaker. Another Secrets is good also. And some other cards that are not really in consideration. Basically between those three. I do think that black-red is not a very good color combination. I've sort of come to realize that the red aggro decks are not as good as I thought they were, and that's part of the reason for a lot of my struggles early in the format. Obviously if all the pieces come together it can still work, but I'm tempted to just take Bombard. I might just take the Neckbreaker though. If I take Bombard and go down a black-red path, I'm going to be pretty upset that I passed up on Neckbreaker. Obviously we could move away from black and be red plus something else, in which case I'll miss the Bombard, so I'm not 100% sure on that pick. Here we've got some decent white cards. All the white cards in this format are pretty solid. I think white is among the best colors, if not the best. Strength of the pack has gone down for me in my estimation, but it's still a fine card. Sailor Means has gone way up in my estimation though, and I could even just take it here, just because this pack is not super strong anyway. If there was a clearly better card I would probably just take it, but it is possible to draft like a multicolor control deck with Sailor Means, and if you do end up in that deck, Sailor is pretty important, because you need it for the fixing, the ramp, the defense. It's just the whole package in one. Here we've got Daring Buccaneer, which is a pretty solid card for the red aggro deck if I wanted to keep going down the Neckbreaker path. Fanatical Firebrand is also good for similar reasons, but it has a little bit more utility. Not actually sure which is better between the two. Probably the Buccaneer. Not 100% on that, but I think just 1 mana 2/2s is kind of what you want to be doing, especially when you've got cards like Neckbreaker. You want to be able to get them through like the X4 blockers and whatnot. Although Firebrand, it kind of depends on the metagame at the time. I think right now people are sort of in the mindset of slowing the format down, but if you could go up against another aggro deck, sometimes the Firebrand is exactly what you want. Wow, that's a late Crested Herd Caller. Green is one of the only colors we aren't really considering here, but it looks to be pretty clearly the best card in this pack. The alternative would be like Swaggering Corsair, which is fine, but this card's actually gone down quite a bit for me. Even if you can consistently make it a 3/3, the 3/3 for 3 is not actually that amazing in this format, because there's so many ways to brick wall it with 4 toughness creatures, or otherwise deal with it, or just ignore it while you're doing your own thing. Hunt the Weak's also strong, Jadecraft Artisan's also strong, so I'm getting a signal that possibly green's open. So I think I'm just going to take it, mostly just because there's nothing else for me in the colors I already have. But we'll see if that pans out. Colossal Dreadmaw has gone up in my estimation. as has Giltgrove Stalker. It's also a Goblin Trailblazer, which I like. So now we're being kind of put to the test here. Do I keep going down the red aggro strategy, or do I pick up on the signal that green might be open and take one of those cards, and potentially, if not likely, abandoning my Netbreaker? It's actually a very close decision. I think I'm going to take the Trailblazer, because if we end up going down the red-black plan, we're going to want as many of these cards as possible, and if green is as open as I think, I don't think it'll be that hard to pivot once again later on down the line. Slippery Scoundrel's interesting. There's nothing really for the red-black aggro deck. Scoundrel's probably the best card here. I mean, Expel's also fine. I like the Scoundrel though. We could be like red-blue aggro, but then we give up on a lot of the equity on the Neckbreaker, not being able to cast it on time. Although I guess we have the Sailor of Means, and we could find some more fixings. I think it is strong enough to splash for if we end up in the right blue-red aggro deck. Wow, very late Water Knot. So blue is also looking kind of open. Also a very late Hunt the Week. This is difficult. Kind of getting mixed signals here. I think I'm going to take Hunt the Week, just because I'm getting such a strong signal on green. Like, Water Knot I think makes more sense for the deck we have, or potentially could have, but I haven't really seen that many good indications that blue is open besides this. It's possible it was just a fluke. And here we can take Pterodon, but white is the only color we're not really looking at. Probably just take this Overgrown Armasaur. It looks like green might be the direction we're going after all, which is fine. Tilonoli's Crown, meh. Super late Secrets of the Golden City. Maybe we can be like blue-green and abandon all these, basically drafting two decks at the same time, which is not really where I want to be. Frillback is a playable, but it's not one I'm really looking for. I'm going to take the Secrets as a kind of speculative pick. Tilonoli's Crown is playable. I have the Stampede's pretty good. Alright, so it looks like green maybe is where we should have been all along. Which means that all of these red and black cards we took early on might end up being wasted picks, but that's okay, because if our deck is open, you know, we're looking to be not in too bad a shape. Even though blue-green, we generally want to be merfolk and very heavily synergistic. If the colors are open, I think we might be okay. This pack is not amazing. Once again, we're put to the decision, do we take a good red-black aggro card, or do we consider, you know, maybe it's time to move into this deck. We can take something like Colossal Dreadmaw and just start filling out our deck with playables. Not an enviable position. Like, Dreadmaw is a good card. I would be happy to have at least one in my deck, if not two. In fact, with the Knight of the Stampede and the proper shell to build around the Dreadmaw, I would be happy with like 2, even 3 copies of it. Probably not 3, but 2 for sure. Just feels pretty bad to take it first pick. Whereas if we end up moving back into this deck, which we already have a solid start on, we could even bring this in, and then this is a very good 2-drop for that deck. It's one of the better ones. I'm going to take the Dreadmaw. I'm getting a signal now that we should be in green. I mean, signal's the wrong word to use there because that was a first pick, but you know what I mean. Sea Legs is meh. Bombard is good. I'm happy taking Bombard here no matter what deck we're drafting. If we end up in red-black, we can play it happily. If we end up in blue-green, we'll very likely be able to splash it off of cards like Sailor of Means, whatever other fixing we get, because there is quite a bit of good fixing in the format. Bonus Hunger, I haven't actually played with this card yet. It seems okay. Doesn't seem like super strong, but it's definitely like above playable. I think it's still Bombard. Even if we were in the red-black deck, I think Bombard is defensible pick over Bonus Hunger. Here we have Moment of Craving, Night of the Stampede, and then I guess Buccaneers Bravado, Sadistic Sky Marcher. Seems like it's time to make a decision here. And like, even though I'm seeing decent red and black cards, I think A, we haven't seen a strong signal that it's open, and B, I don't think the deck is super strong anyway, so I think I should probably just commit to the slower, harder to assemble deck, which means taking defensive cards and you know, trying to prolong the game and overwhelm the board with mid-range stuff and value. Raging Regisaur, we could potentially splash. I don't know if it's quite worth it. We don't have any great payoffs for Enrage. We have the Armasaur, which is okay, but don't know if that's enough of a reason to want to splash just a 4-mana 4/4, which is a good card, but not, you know, an amazing one. The other thing to consider is maybe we could be red-green. I was kind of focused in on this all these blue cards, and I do think the blue cards fit well with our green, but maybe red-green is a potential way to pivot and not totally have thrown away all these early picks. I think the Regisaur here is the pick either way. I could take like a 2-drop pirate, but I think that ship has sailed. Then the only other consideration would be like Sea Legs. Alright, another Dreadmaw, I do like that. Hardy Veteran, I like also. We don't have very many 2-drops, by which I mean we only have the Trailblazer, and that's assuming we are red, but we probably are. So it's actually close between Evolving Wilds, Dreadmaw, and Veteran. And I do think Dreadmaw is actually a very serious consideration here because we have the double Night of the Stampede, and in general our deck's going to want to go over the top because we're not really going to be able to beat people down with our current curve. So assuming we took out all of these cards, I guess I'll take out the blue also. Our curve's going to look pretty atrocious because we're keeping in these 2 cards, which are not great in the mid-range deck. I'm going to take the Dreadmaw though. I know what I'm doing. I promise. But which I mean I don't really at all. Cheris Hatchling is pretty good. We have a good number of dinosaurs now. Just a very hard card for your opponent to justify attacking into or blocking. Stampeding Hordecrest is also playable. Might even wheel out of this pack. Yeah, there might not be enough cards in the pack, but it's the kind of card that I could see wheeling if there was one in another pack that I forgot about. Dreadmaw number 3. Alright, I'm in. We've got the double Knight. Potentially the Sailor of Means if we do end up in blue after all. Obviously, if I've known there was a 3rd Dreadmaw coming, I would have taken something else out of that last pack, like the Hardy Veteran. Mutiny's playable. Wow, Swashbuckler Wield? That's interesting. I might actually just take this Gleaming Barrier, because I think our game plan is going to be to block rather than to attack. This is the ideal card to buy us time. Aggressive Urge is playable, Sea Legs as well. Like, Aggressive Urge is always going to be playable, don't get me wrong, but if we end up pivoting back to blue, we're going to need interaction, and this is one of the few ways to do so at a mana efficient rate. And we get a second one anyway, might as well. Alright, how about, I'll take the Horncrest now, as a matter of fact. Okay. Feeling a little bit more comfortable now than I was in the last pack. Ooh, a Rosca Relic, I might even play that. It's pretty good when we're trying to ramp into expensive stuff. And we can get Ascend pretty likely if we're prolonging the game. I'd like to cut this Trailblazer, or this Buccaneer rather, because we're not going to have very many pirates, so it's essentially a 3-drop, 3-mana 2/2, which I don't love. Trailblazer's fine, but not really where I want to be either. There are going to be some curves where we drop it down early and then just go to town with it, but it's not likely to be a common case. Fire Cannon Blast is good. Grazing Whiptail and Ixali's Keeper are both good. I'd be happy with any of those three. Whiptail I think I like better than both of these two cards, but we already are looking pretty good at the 4 slot. The 4+ slot really. So I think I'd rather take a bear or just a good removal spell. I'm leaning towards the removal spell. Even though it's slow and clunky and hard to cast, we are going to want to have some good interaction, especially when the bottom end of our curve is looking pretty poor. Ixalan's Keeper I'd also be fine with, but I think it's only slightly above replacement level in our deck. Ooh, Verdant Sun's Avatar. That's not a bad ramp target. I think I'm certainly taking that here. There's really not much else in consideration besides a sideboard Crushing Canopy, a Thrash of Raptors, and that's about it. Okay. Huh. So I haven't taken any way to splash yet, have I? I don't believe so. I don't even know if Brontodon's really that worth splashing in the first place. It's just like a 6/6 that makes our Knight of the Stampedes a little bigger. Turns our Gleaming Barrier into a 4/4 defender. I think that's all it does, really. So I'll just take this to Shauna's Wayfinder pretty happily. This is certainly not a Dinosaur Stampede deck. Although Dual Shot's also a consideration. This card is also quite strong in some matchups. Then there's an argument even for Cobbled Wings, but at this point I think just taking cheap blockers is probably wise. There's another Fire Cannon Blast, or a mediocre 3-drop. I'll just take the Fire Cannon Blast, also a mediocre 5-drop. But we've already got plenty of those. Yep. Immune with Dinosaurs is actually pretty good in this deck. We have a pretty solid number of dinosaurs to fetch up. Unfriendly Fire is also good. Buccaneers is okay, but worse than like a 2 or 3 drop at this point. We even have the Raptor that we could play if we needed another 4, so I'll take the Commune. Geez, all the Fire Cannon Blasts, huh? I don't know if I'm going to play all 3 of them, because that puts a pretty big tax on our mana. I'll take it, but most likely not play it. Huh. Wow, there's a lot of good green cards in this pack. See, I knew that green was open in this direction. Ranging Raptors is really good. Probably what I want, but I would also be very, very happy with Ixalan's Diviner or New Horizons. And Blossom Dryad would be passable, but only because of the specific deck we have, even though I don't normally like this card. Ranging Raptors is just great, though. Do we have any combos with it? We have Hunt the Weak. We don't have Dual Shot, I passed up on it. We do have Tillinolli's Crown, but I'm probably not playing that. I guess we have the Raging Regisaur, that's a combo. Yeah, I think this is a pretty easy Raptor. Cobbled Wings, probably just going to be a sideboard card for us, but it will be pretty solid in some matchups. Sending our giant fatties to the sky. Ooh, we get a 2-drop back. I'm very happy about that. Crushing Canopy for the sideboard. Alright, now I'm happy. Take this Brontodon, even though I'm probably not going to splash it. I mean, our deck was on the verge of being a train wreck towards the end of pack 1, but we sort of got our act together. So cuts, I can cut this Daring Buccaneer pretty easily now. Got a solid number of early blockers now. I don't feel totally like we're going to get overrun by stuff. The only card I wish I had now was the the Dual Shot. I guess Tillinolli's Crown can be used as a 2-mana deal 1 damage to an opponent's creature. It's the kind of uncommonly used mode on that card, but probably not worthwhile to do that in main deck. Our red also ended up not being too significant in our deck. We've only got a few. Unfortunately, one of the few red cards we have is the Fire Cannon Blast, which is going to require double red, which means we can't just go like 11-6 or whatever with our mana base. 10-7 at the minimum, and we'll have to strongly consider 9-8. green requirements aren't too bad until the late game, so maybe 9/8's okay. And because we have such a dearth of 2 and 3 mana creatures, the blast is sometimes just going to be our 3 mana play. And it's just kind of like worst case scenario if we don't have a 3-drop to play and we don't have our second red to just fire off a Fire Cannon Blast. So I would like to avoid that if possible, or at least give myself the best chance of avoiding that by hedging a little bit more towards red, even though I might normally not want to. Our fixing is pretty much 0 outside of the ranging raptors, and I guess the gleaming barrier if you consider that, but I don't really. Got pretty good removal though. A few burn spells, Hunt the Weak is very good in this deck, and Mutiny can pick off small things in most cases. But I think I'm just going to go 9/8, even though it's going to recommend something like 11/6. We just can't do that with the Fire Cannon Blast, unfortunately. We're also not going to be able to trigger the raid very often on this, which is unfortunate, but you know, you gotta make do with the removal you get. The only consideration would be to like cut one of them for a Till and Ollie's Crown, which combos with a couple of our Enrage guys, but mostly just acts as a 2 mana removal spell for a 1 toughness creature. But I think that's more likely going to be a sideboard consideration than anything, and I'd rather have the more flexible card, albeit the one that puts a bigger strain on our mana, just out of necessity. This deck ended up not being the worst. It's not a great deck by any means, but it's got some powerful things going for it, and I feel fairly confident going into round 1.